What would you do if your neighbor kept destroying your trash can and then brought in a bodyguard to control the entire street? My trash can had become a battlefield. Every morning, the same ritual repeated itself. I would step outside, coffee mug in one hand, briefcase in the other, only to see my trash can sprawled on the driveway like a defeated soldier. The lid cracked open, yesterday's leftovers scattered across the concrete like confetti from a party I wasn't invited to. At first, I told myself it was an accident. Maybe raccoons, maybe wind, maybe kids being stupid. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But deep down, I knew the truth, and the truth had a name. Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, the woman who believed the cul-de-sac belonged to her. She was the type who measured grass with a ruler, who wrote angry notes if your Christmas lights stayed up past January 2nd, who actually smiled when she handed out fines. And now, apparently, she had declared war on my trash can. The first few times, I let it go. I cleaned up the mess, muttering under my breath. Don't start something. She's looking for a fight. That's what my wife said too. Ignore her. Don't give her what she wants. But Karen didn't get bored. She escalated. One Tuesday morning, I came out and saw her. She didn't know I was watching. She marched up to my can like it was personal. One sharp kick with her orthopedic sneakers, and the whole thing toppled over, garbage spilling everywhere. And then she smiled. Not the polite kind of smile, the victorious kind. The kind that said, I won. Again. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake. This was war. That night I installed cameras. Not the cheap kind, motion sensors, night vision, cloud storage, the works. My neighbors might have thought I was paranoid, but I needed proof. And I got it. The very next morning, at 6:47 a.m., the camera caught her in full glory. Karen in her neon tracksuit, walking her tiny dog. She stopped at my driveway, looked around, and then shoved the trash can hard with both hands. She laughed to herself as the dog barked, like it was some kind of inside joke between them. I replayed the footage 5 times, jaw tight, fingers clenched around the mouse. The evidence was undeniable. She was caught red-handed. I wanted to storm over right then, shove my phone in her face, scream, "What the hell is wrong with you?" But that's exactly what Karen wanted. She thrived on confrontation. She lived for drama, so I stayed quiet. For now. The next week was hell. Karen kept going. Sometimes she'd knock it over at night, when the street was dark and quiet. Other times, in broad daylight, right in front of other neighbors, who, of course, pretended not to see. Nobody wanted to get on Karen's bad side. Every time I cleaned the mess, I felt my blood boil hotter. This wasn't just about trash anymore. This was about control. She wanted to remind me who ran this neighborhood. By Friday, I had hours of footage. Karen kicking, shoving, knocking, smirking. My trash can had become her playground. And me? I had become obsessed. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't relax at home. I stayed up late, watching the recordings, analyzing every move like some detective tracking a criminal. My wife shook her head. "You're letting her win," she warned. "That's what she wants." "No," I said, eyes still glued to the screen. "She wants me to stay silent." That's how she wins. But not this time. Saturday morning, I decided to test her. I placed the trash can upright, exactly where she always targeted it. But this time, I waited inside my car, parked a little farther down the street. The tinted windows gave me cover. Sure enough, at 7:12 a.m., Karen appeared. Same neon tracksuit, same tiny dog, same smug expression. She strutted toward the can, paused and glanced around. She didn't see me, and then, boom. One swift push, trash everywhere. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded. I wanted to leap out, catch her in the act, end it right there. But I didn't, because suddenly I realized something. This wasn't just about my trash can, this was bigger. Karen wasn't just tormenting me, she was testing the limits of what she could get away with. If I confronted her now, it would turn into a shouting match. She'd twist it, make herself the victim, and somehow the HOA would back her. I needed a plan. I needed patience. I needed to make her think she'd already won. That night, I sat at my desk reviewing footage. Every shove, every kick, every smirk. I organized it into folders, labeled by date and time, evidence. But the more I watched, the more I noticed something strange. Karen wasn't just knocking over the can, she was looking for something. In one video, after tipping it over, she crouched down, sifting through the garbage with one hand. In another, she actually picked up a piece of paper, studied it for a moment, then tossed it back. It wasn't random vandalism, she was searching. The thought chilled me. What the hell was she hoping to find? Old bills, personal information, something she could use against me. I leaned back in my chair, eyes narrowing. This wasn't just harassment. This was personal. And that was the moment I decided. Enough was enough. Karen wanted a war. She had one. But this time, it wouldn't be on her term. Karen didn't just knock over trash cans, she weaponized rules. 2 days after the envelope trap, I got my first letter from the HOA. A plain white envelope slipped neatly under my door. On the front, Homeowners Association Compliance Notice. On the inside, 3 paragraphs of legal-sounding nonsense. Violation, trash can visibility. Homeowners must not leave trash receptacles visible from the street except on collection day. Fine, $50. I laughed when I read it. Then I laughed harder when I saw the photo attached. A grainy, zoomed-in picture of my driveway, my trash can standing exactly where Karen had knocked it the day before. So that was her game. She knocked it over, took a photo, and fined me for violating HOA rules. I crumpled the letter, tossed it on the counter, and muttered, "Unbelievable." From the kitchen, my wife raised an eyebrow. "What now?" "She fined me," I said. "For what?" "For her own crime." My wife shook her head slowly, like she'd seen this coming. "Don't engage." "That's what she wants too late," I muttered. The next morning, another letter. This time, violation grass length. According to Karen, my lawn exceeded the maximum height by 2 inches. Attached photo, my grass, zoomed so close you could count the blades. And again the fine, $75. The day after that, another violation. Improper trash lid closure. Then improper recycling separation. Each letter stacked higher on my counter, each fine bolder than the last. Karen wasn't just harassing me, she was bleeding me dry, $50 at a time. I called the HOA office. "Of course," Karen answered. "Homeowners Association, this is Karen," she said, sugar dripping from her voice. "Cut the crap," I snapped. "You know these violations are fake." "I assure you, sir," she said smoothly, "every notice is legitimate. The rules are very clear. Perhaps you haven't read your contract." "Oh, I've read it," I shot back. "What it doesn't say is that you get to play neighborhood dictator." Silence, then the smile in her voice. "Rules are rules. Have a wonderful day, click." That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Karen had a system. She wasn't just targeting me out of boredom. She was building a case. Letter by letter, photo by photo, violation by violation, she was documenting a pattern. And in the world of the HOA, a pattern of non-compliance could lead to something worse. Foreclosure. That's right. Buried in the HOA contract, in the fine print nobody reads, was a clause. Repeated non-compliance could lead to property liens, and property liens could lead to foreclosure. Karen didn't just want my trash can. She wanted my house. That night, I went to a neighborhood meeting. It was held in the community center, a bland beige room with folding chairs and fluorescent lights. About 20 neighbors showed up, most of them the quiet type, clutching coffee cups and avoiding eye contact. Karen sat at the front, clipboard in hand, her smile tight and professional. "Welcome, everyone," she began. "We have a lot to discuss tonight." First order of business, compliance violations. Her eyes flicked to me. I felt the room shift. Heads turned. People whispered. Karen pulled out a folder. We've had several reports of ongoing issues. Trash receptacles left visible. Improper lawn care. Recycling mismanagement. Very disappointing. I clenched my jaw. A man in the back cleared his throat. Karen, are we really here to talk about trash cans? Karen's smile didn't falter. This isn't about trash cans, Mr. Lewis. It's about respect for community standards. When one homeowner refuses to follow the rules, it affects all of us. She looked directly at me. Some people think the rules don't apply to them. The room went silent. I stood slowly. Are you serious right now? Karen's smile widened. Do you have something you'd like to say, sir? Yeah, I said. I'd like to say you're full of it. You're the one knocking over trash cans. I've got video proof. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Karen tilted her head, feigning innocence. That's a very serious accusation. I can show everyone right now, I snapped. You kicking over my trash, laughing like it's your hobby. Her smile vanished for the first time, just a flicker. Then it was back, colder than ever. Neighbors, she said smoothly, this is exactly the kind of hostility I was talking about. False accusations, attempted humiliation. This behavior is toxic to our community. She looked around the room, catching eyes, drawing people in. We must stand together. We must uphold standards, otherwise chaos wins. And just like that, she had them. People nodded, murmurs of agreement rose. And me? I stood there, phone in hand, looking like the crazy one. I sank back into my chair, pulse racing. She'd flipped the script. She made me the villain. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just fighting Karen, I was fighting her rulebook. The letters kept coming, violation after violation, fines stacked higher, threats of further action. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked on my neighbor Mark's door. Mark was quiet, kept to himself, but I'd seen the same letters in his mailbox. When he opened the door, his eyes darted nervously up and down the street. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. She's targeting you too, isn't she? I said. He hesitated, then nodded. Everyone, actually. But nobody wants to fight her. She always wins. Not this time, I said. He looked doubtful. She has the board in her pocket. The rules are written so vague, she can fine us for anything. You can't beat her. Watch me, I said. Later that night, I sat at my desk surrounded by letters, piles of violations, dates, fines. I spread them out like evidence in a crime scene investigation. And then I noticed something. Every letter was signed by Karen. Not the board, not the HOA president, just Karen. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through the HOA bylaws. Article 7. All violation notices must be reviewed and approved by the board before being issued. But mine weren't. Karen wasn't just abusing her power, she was breaking her own rules. I felt a smile creep across my face. For the first time in weeks, I had leverage, but leverage meant nothing if I couldn't prove it. So I decided to push her. I left my trash can out, not just on collection day, every day, bold, centered, obvious. And I waited. The next morning, she struck. Another letter, another fine, same signature, Karen. I held the paper up to the light, my pulse steady now, not racing. Because I finally had her, she wasn't just the queen of the HOA. She was a queen breaking her own crown, and I was going to use it. My trash can was no longer just a container for garbage. It had become bait. I wasn't stupid. I knew confronting Karen directly wouldn't work. She twisted everything. She thrived on drama. But if I could make her slip up in a way nobody could deny, then she'd have nowhere to run. And so the traps began. The first trap waited. I started simple. I filled the trash can with bricks. Heavy, uneven bricks from my garage, stacked carefully at the bottom, then covered with a layer of actual trash so it looked normal. From a distance, nothing seemed different. The camera was armed, my coffee was ready, and I sat by the window, waiting. At 6:52 a.m., right on schedule, Karen appeared. Neon tracksuit, sunglasses, tiny dog dragging at the leash. She strolled down the sidewalk like she owned it, head held high. When she reached my driveway, she slowed. Her smirk appeared, the smirk I'd come to hate. She placed one hand on the can and gave it her usual shove. Nothing happened. The can didn't budge. Her smirk faltered. She shoved again, harder this time with both hands. Still nothing. The can stood tall, unmoving, like a soldier guarding its post. Karen looked around, confused. Then she leaned her shoulder into it, trying to topple it. The can shifted slightly but held its ground, and then she slipped, lost balance, almost fell right into the grass. I covered my mouth to keep from laughing out loud. The camera caught everything. Karen, red-faced, fighting a trash can and losing. She gave up after a minute, yanked her dog's leash and stormed away. I replayed the footage 3 times, each time it got funnier. But beneath the laughter, there was something darker. Satisfaction. For the first time, she lost. The second trap, the lock. But I wasn't finished. The next night I chained the can to the fence. I looped a heavy-duty bike lock around the handle and secured it tight. From a distance, it looked completely normal. Only up close would someone notice it wasn't going anywhere. At 7:03 a.m., there she was again. This time she didn't hesitate. She marched right up and kicked. The can jerked sideways, then snapped back into place, clanging loudly as the chain tightened. Karen froze, startled. She crouched, squinting, inspecting the base. She tugged, yanked, kicked again, but the chain held firm. Her dog barked wildly, wrapping the leash around her legs as she struggled. Finally, she threw her hands up in frustration, muttered something under her breath, and stormed off. I nearly spit my coffee out laughing. The mighty HOA Karen, defeated twice in 2 days by a trash can. But then my smile faded, because if there's one thing I'd learned about Karen, it's that she doesn't back down. She escalates, and I'd just humiliated her, twice. The retaliation. The letters doubled. Violation, improper fence maintenance. Violation, unsightly lawn decorations. Violation, unauthorized camera installation. Each fine steeper than the last, each accusation more absurd. Neighbors whispered as I passed. Some gave me sympathetic looks. Others avoided me entirely, scared Karen might target them next. But I noticed something new, too. When Karen knocked over my trash can, people watched. They didn't intervene, didn't say a word, but their eyes lingered. Whispers spread. The footage I showed Mark must have traveled farther than I thought. Karen's empire was cracking. She knew it. I knew it. And she was getting desperate. The third trap, the camera reveal. One night I set up a decoy. I placed an old, broken trash can at the curb, slightly tilted, just begging to be knocked over. Inside, I rigged a cheap motion sensor camera, tiny, hidden, impossible to notice. Then I left my real can chained near the fence, secure. At 6:48 a.m., Karen arrived. She spotted the tilted can immediately, like a shark smelling blood. She walked faster, dog scampering behind. One swift kick, and the can toppled straight onto the camera, which recorded her face in full HD as she laughed. Then she froze. She bent down, peering into the can. Her laughter vanished. She picked up the small black device, turning it over in her hand. Her eyes widened as realization hit. She'd just been caught. Again, she hurled the camera into the street, stomped on it, and stormed away, dragging her dog like a rag doll. But what she didn't know, that was the decoy camera. The real one, mounted higher on the fence, caught every second of her little tantrum. I now had her face, clear as day, destroying property that wasn't hers. The evidence was undeniable, and for the first time, I felt something dangerous. Power. The neighborhood shift word spread faster than I expected. At the next HOA meeting, the air was different. People whispered louder this time, eyes darting toward Karen. A few neighbors avoided her gaze altogether. Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, smile plastered on. But I could see the cracks. Her hands trembled slightly, her voice was tighter. "Compliance is non-negotiable," she declared. "We cannot allow certain individuals to disregard the rules." This time, a voice spoke up from the crowd. "Like you knocking over people's trash cans?" The room froze. Karen's smile faltered. "Excuse me." "You heard me?" the voice said, Mark standing in the back. "Half the neighborhood has seen the videos." "You've been caught." Murmurs rippled through the room. Someone else added, "Yeah, why are you targeting him?" Another, "She fined me for leaving my hose out." Karen's face turned crimson. She slammed her clipboard on the table. "Lies! All of it," she snapped. "Do you think a trash can matters more than order? More than the community?" But the room wasn't with her anymore. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. The final trap, the humiliation. I decided it was time. The footage wasn't just for me anymore. It was for everyone, so I edited it. Every shove, every kick, every smirk. The failed attempt with the weighted can. The tug of war with the chained can. The tantrum with the camera. I stitched it together into a single video. Karen versus the trash can. I didn't post it online, not yet. I just sent it anonymously to a handful of neighbors. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. Phones buzzed, laughter echoed across lawns. And Karen. She became a joke. People imitated her in the street, pretending to fight invisible trash cans. Kids shouted, "Watch out, Karen's coming," when they saw garbage bins. Her power didn't vanish overnight, but it cracked. And once a queen's crown cracks, it never really mends. But Karen wasn't done. If anything, humiliation made her more dangerous. Late one night, as I reviewed footage, I caught her again, standing at the edge of my driveway, just staring at my house. Not moving, not smiling, just staring. Dog silent at her side. She stood there for nearly 5 minutes before finally walking away. It wasn't about the trash can anymore. It was about me. And I knew the worst was yet to come. After the video spread, Karen versus the trash can, the neighborhood buzzed with laughter. Some people tried to hide it. Others embraced it openly. Kids reenacted her tantrum, stomping imaginary cameras. Teenagers posted memes in the group chat. But laughter is dangerous when it bruises pride. Karen's pride was bleeding. The next morning, a fresh letter arrived in my mailbox. Violation. Displaying unsightly property. Trash can left in view. Fine, $150. I stared at it, stunned. The can was in the exact same place it had always been. Then came another. Violation, grass height exceeding HOA standards. Fine, $100. And another. Violation, unauthorized lawn ornament. Fine, $200. It was relentless. Karen had shifted her tactics. If she couldn't topple my can physically, she would bury me in paper. I walked outside, waving the stack of letters, only to find Mark waiting by his fence. "She's at it again, huh?" he said grimly. "3 in 2 days," I replied. "You're not the only one." He held up his own envelope. Violation, same handwriting, same Karen. It wasn't just me anymore. Neighbors start choosing. At first it was subtle. A few neighbors started walking their dogs on the opposite side of the street to avoid Karen's daily patrol. Some stopped waving when she passed. Others, bolder, laughed openly when the kids mocked her trash can war. But Karen wasn't losing everyone. Old Mrs. Whitmore, who lived on the corner, stood by her side. "Karen just wants order," she muttered whenever I passed. "This neighborhood is falling apart because of rule breakers like you." And then there was Brad, the gym-obsessed guy with the lifted truck. He wasn't just loyal to Karen, he was her enforcer. Whenever Karen argued with someone, Brad wasn't far behind, crossing his arms, glaring like he was ready to fight. It was no longer me versus Karen. It was sides forming, invisible lines cutting through our quiet suburban street. The HOA ambush. The next HOA meeting was a war zone. Karen walked in first, clipboard in hand, purple pant coat glowing under the harsh fluorescent lights. She smiled, but her eyes darted, scanning for enemies. I sat near the back, beside Mark. A few other neighbors nodded to me, silent signs of alliance. Karen slammed the gavel. "Order! Tonight we address a critical issue, non-compliance threatening the harmony of our community." Her gaze landed on me. "Certain individuals have engaged in disruptive behavior, setting traps, and endangering property. This behavior is unacceptable." Murmurs rippled through the room. I stood. "You mean catching you on camera knocking over my trash can? That's the behavior you're talking about?" Gasps. All eyes swung to her. Karen's smile twitched. "That footage is manipulated. Lies spread by people who don't respect community standards." "Really?" I said. "Because my chain, my broken camera, my smashed driveway say otherwise." Before she could answer, Mark spoke up. "Enough, Karen. We've all seen it. You've been targeting him, and now you're targeting anyone who doesn't bow down to you." Brad stood suddenly, chair scraping. "Careful what you say about her." His voice was low, dangerous. The room tensed. Whispers grew louder. Lines were being drawn right there, in the open. Karen raised her hands. "Neighbors shouldn't fight each other, but rules are rules, and those who don't comply will face consequences." Her smile returned, but it was brittle, cracking at the edges. That night I realized something chilling. Karen wasn't retreating, she was recruiting. The escalation within days, the harassment spread. Mark's mailbox was dented in, his tires mysteriously slashed. He didn't need to say who he thought was behind it. Another neighbor, Sandra, found a violation notice for improper flower arrangement. A ridiculous charge, clearly Karen's handwriting. People started whispering more openly, gathering in clusters. Some with me, some with her. Every conversation felt like a test. Which side are you on? Even kids divided, half mocking Karen, half avoiding her in fear. And me. I became paranoid. Every car that slowed near my driveway, every shadow at night, every rustle of bushes, my mind snapped to Karen. Was she watching? Planning? Waiting? I checked my cameras obsessively, watching for her purple silhouette. Some nights she appeared, lingering at the edge of the street, not moving. Just watching. It was no longer about control. It was personal. The trap backfires. I decided to strike again, to expose her further. This time, I rigged a decoy violation letter, an official-looking envelope left sticking out of my mailbox. Inside was nothing, just a blank sheet. But if Karen took it, I'd catch her red-handed on camera. I waited. At 6:50 a.m., Karen appeared. Purple pant coat, sunglasses, dog tugging at the leash. She slowed, looked around. Then casually, she reached into my mailbox, pulled the envelope, and slipped it under her coat. Got her, or so I thought. That evening, when I checked my footage, my stomach dropped. The camera feed was black, dead. Wires snipped. She'd cut them. The letter was gone, the footage erased. Karen had learned, and she was ahead of me again. The neighborhood divide. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was survival. One evening, as I stepped outside, I found a group of neighbors gathered in Sandra's yard. They looked up as I approached, falling silent. Mark gave me a nod. Sandra too, but a few others looked away. Some even stepped back, like I carried a curse. Then Karen appeared, striding across the street with Brad at her side. She didn't join the group. She didn't have to. People drifted toward her naturally, like gravity. Two clusters, two camps. Her camp was larger, louder, more aggressive. Mine, smaller, quieter. But tighter. This wasn't a trash can war anymore. It was a civil war. The cliffhanger. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, eyes fixed on the driveway, waiting for Karen to appear. At 2:17 a.m., movement. Not Karen, Brad. He stood at the edge of my lawn, arms crossed, staring straight at my house. His silhouette was massive, his shadow stretching across the grass. He didn't move for nearly 10 minutes, just stood there watching. Then, slowly, he raised his phone. The flash went off once, twice. He was taking pictures of my house, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about HOA rules anymore. This wasn't even about Karen's pride. This was about intimidation, control, domination. And the war had only just begun. The night Brad took photos of my house, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just harassment anymore, it was surveillance. It was a warning. We're watching you. And that meant it wasn't just a game. It was a threat. Shadows in the neighborhood. The following days felt different, heavier. Every time I stepped outside, I felt eyes on me, from behind curtains, from porches, from cars parked too long on the street. Brad's truck rumbled by more often than usual, slowing whenever it passed my driveway. His glare followed me in the side mirror, lingering like a storm cloud. Karen didn't knock over my trash can anymore. She didn't need to. She'd upgraded from childish harassment to psychological warfare. Instead, I started finding strange things. A single dead flower placed on my porch, my newspaper soaked in foul-smelling liquid, a chalk mark drawn near my fence, erased by the next rain. Small, almost meaningless things, but together they screamed one message: we can reach you anytime we want. And I couldn't shake the question, was it Karen, Brad, or someone else who had chosen their side? Allies and enemies. Not everyone turned against me. Sandra stopped by one evening, clutching her phone like it was a shield. She sent me a violation today, she whispered, for excessive wind chimes. I don't even have wind chimes. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. She's trying to scare you, I said. It's working, Sandra admitted. I don't sleep anymore. Every time I hear a noise outside, I think it's her. Mark joined us on my porch. She's unraveling, he said. The more people push back, the nastier she gets. But she's losing ground. Slowly, slow isn't good enough, I muttered. But for every Sandra and Mark, there was a Mrs. Whitmore or a Brad. Loyal soldiers in Karen's army. One afternoon, I caught Mrs. Whitmore glaring at me as she watered her plants. When our eyes met, she shook her head disapprovingly, like I was the villain tearing the neighborhood apart. And Brad? He didn't hide his allegiance. He parked his truck diagonally across the street one evening, blocking part of my driveway. When I approached, he just smiled and said, "Karen says hi." The HOA coup. The next HOA meeting was worse than the last. Karen strode in like a queen reclaiming her throne. Purple pant coat, perfect hair, clipboard held like a sword. Brad shadowed her, arms crossed. This time she came prepared. "Neighbors," she began, voice smooth as venom, "our community is under attack. By those who refuse to respect order. By those who twist rules, set traps, and create chaos." Every word was aimed at me. She held up a photo, grainy, dark. My house taken at night. "Proof," she declared, "this house has unauthorized surveillance equipment that endangers our privacy. Cameras pointed at you, watching your family's gasps echoed through the room, whispers spread like wildfire." I stood furious. "Those cameras are there to protect my property. To protect me from you." Karen's smile widened. "Or to spy on your neighbors. Do you really know what he's recording? What he's doing with those videos?" Brad stepped forward. "Maybe someone should check." The room erupted. Voices clashed, some defending me, others accusing me. The meeting wasn't about trash cans anymore. It was about trust, about fear. And for the first time, I realized Karen had flipped the narrative. I wasn't the victim anymore. She was painting me as the threat. The breaking point. That night, I sat in the dark, house silent, only the glow of my computer screen lighting the room. I replayed the footage. Karen, Brad, violation letters, the trash can battles, the HOA meetings. Individually, they were ridiculous. Collectively, they were damning. But who would believe me now? My allies were outnumbered, my evidence dismissed as tampered, my cameras branded as weapons instead of shields. Karen had turned the neighborhood into a jury, and I was guilty until proven innocent. I clenched my fists. Enough was enough. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore, this was about ending it. So I planned, not a childish trap, not a prank, a real plan. A trap not for her body, but for her pride. Because if Karen's empire ran on power, then humiliation was the only weapon sharp enough to cut her crown in two. Strange visitors. Before I could act, the intimidation escalated. One night, heavy footsteps scraped across my porch. I froze, heart pounding, staring at the front door. The doorknob jiggled once, twice, then silence. By the time I checked the camera, all I saw was a shadow disappearing into the street. The next day, my backyard gate was wide open. Dog prints in the mud. Not mine. Brad's truck roared by more often, always slowing, always watching. Sometimes Karen was in the passenger seat, sunglasses hiding her eyes, lips curled in that smirk I hated. It wasn't paranoia anymore, it was a siege. The secret meeting. Mark called me one evening. His voice was low, urgent. "A few of us are meeting tonight. Without her. Sandra's place. You should come." I went. Inside, 5 neighbors sat in a circle, eyes wary, voices hushed. They looked like conspirators planning a rebellion. "She's tearing us apart," Sandra said. "She fined me for painting my shutters the wrong shade of blue," another added. "She threatened to sue me over Christmas lights." They turned to me. "You fought her the longest," Mark said. "What do we do?" I looked around at their anxious faces. Ordinary people who just wanted peace in their homes. People bullied into silence by one woman's hunger for control. And in that moment I understood. This wasn't just my war anymore. It was everyone's. We expose her, I said firmly, not with jokes, not with pranks, with truth, with proof she can't twist. We take back this neighborhood. Nods around the circle. Hope flickered in their eyes. But hope was dangerous because Karen wasn't stupid. She knew rebellion when she smelled it, and she was already tightening her grip. The cliffhanger. That night, as I returned home, I saw it. A flyer taped to every mailbox. Special emergency HOA. Meeting tomorrow night. Attendance mandatory. At the bottom, in bold letters. Agenda. Vote for immediate removal of non-compliant resident. No names were listed. But everyone knew who it meant. Karen was done playing. She wasn't just trying to find me, intimidate me, or humiliate me anymore. She was trying to erase me, and tomorrow night my fate would be decided by a neighborhood torn in half. The emergency meeting, the night before the emergency HOA meeting, the entire neighborhood buzzed with unease. Every mailbox carried the same printed flyer, bold black letters stamped across white paper. Emergency HOA meeting, attendance mandatory. Neighbors whispered at their driveways, nervously texting in their group chats. Brad's truck had been seen circling the block twice that evening, headlights lingering on houses. Karen, in her sharp purple pant coat, walked the sidewalks earlier, her small dog clicking against the pavement like a metronome of dread. I sat at my dining table, watching the flyer again. My gut told me this was it, the end game. Either Karen cemented her iron grip on the HOA, or she'd finally lose everything. I picked up my phone and texted our small resistance group. Tomorrow, be ready. Cameras on, phones charged, no backing down. Gathering at the hall. The next day, the HOA community hall was packed. Folding chairs lined the room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. It felt less like a meeting, more like a trial. At the front, Karen stood tall in her purple pant coat, lips curved into that same smug smirk. Brad sat off to the side, arms crossed, muscles bulging beneath his t-shirt, glaring at anyone who dared look too long. Karen tapped the microphone. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we will be addressing a very serious matter, violations that threaten the very image of our community. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A woman behind me muttered, "She's lost it." Karen held up photos, grainy night shots of trash cans, fences, and cars parked slightly crooked. This is what happens when people refuse to respect the HOA rules, she declared. And I will not allow it. She pointed directly at me, and this man, is the worst offender of them all. Gasps filled the hall, every eye turned toward me. My heart thudded, but I stayed seated, calm. I was ready for this. The video reveal before Karen could continue, I stood up. Funny you should say that, Karen. Because I brought my own evidence from my bag, I pulled a small projector. The lights dimmed as I connected my phone. A video began to play, security footage I had salvaged before Karen snipped the wires. On the wall, crystal clear, Karen sneaking across driveways at night. Karen deliberately knocking over trash cans. Karen slipping in her purple coat while trying to push over my weighted bin. Karen cutting wires with scissors, her dog tugging at the leash. The room erupted, gasps, laughter, muttering. Karen's face drained of color. "That's doctored," she shrieked. "This is harassment." But the video wasn't done. The final clip rolled, Brad in the dead of night, standing in front of my house, snapping photos like some predator. His silhouette loomed across the lawn like a monster. The room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Then, slowly, neighbors began to boo. Neighbors rise, one by one, voices spoke up. "We're tired of your bullying, Karen. You don't speak for us anymore." "This has gone too far." Brad rose from his chair, fists clenched. "Sit down," he growled at the crowd. But no one sat. For the first time, Karen looked nervous. Her smug expression cracked. She turned to Brad, whispering something, but Brad's eyes stayed locked on me. I raised my phone, still recording. "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Try intimidation again." This time the whole neighborhood will see. Brad froze. The power dynamic shifted in an instant. The vote. The HOA president, a frazzled older man who had always been too scared to oppose Karen, cleared his throat. Given the circumstances, I believe it's time we vote." He raised his hand. "All in favor of removing Karen as HOA chair?" Hands shot up across the room, almost every neighbor. Dozens of arms raised high, voices echoing, "Aye." Karen's jaw dropped. She spun in circles, searching for loyalty, but only a few hesitant hands remained by their sides. Even those who once whispered in her favor stayed quiet. The president nodded. "It's settled. Karen is hereby removed from her position." Cheers broke out. People clapped. Some laughed, others hugged. For the first time in months, the tension lifted. Karen's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this," she screamed before storming out. Brad followed, his heavy footsteps pounding against the floor. Aftermath. That night, the neighborhood felt different. Doors opened, neighbors chatted freely, people smiled again. It felt like we had taken back our street. But Karen wasn't gone for good. Rumors spread that she had filed complaints with the county. Others said she was plotting to start her own independent HOA. Brad's truck disappeared for a week, then reappeared briefly one evening before vanishing again. I knew better than to assume the storm had passed. Still, for now, peace had returned. The trash cans stood upright, the lawns were green, the mailboxes were quiet. Epilogue. The shadow weeks later, I stepped out at night to grab the mail. The street was calm, porch lights glowing warm, crickets singing. I exhaled, finally at ease. But then, movement. Across the street, at the far corner under a flickering streetlight, I saw a figure, still, watching, a faint glimmer of purple fabric in the dark. Karen. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, her dog at her side, staring. I felt the old chill creep back into my bones. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The story wasn't finished, not yet.